Welcome, everyone, to episode 78 of the RDH Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Chad. Joined alongside me is my brother, Tanner. How's it hanging, dude? How's it hanging?
It's going pretty well. If you're watching on YouTube, we still got Brutus over here. He's hanging on the trophies. The trophies, they don't go away, despite popular belief. Ohio State's still national champs, and I think Brutus will hang out here. Mr. Nut, Mr. Buckeye is just gonna, hang out here for a little bit longer. Hopefully, we get a little bit of upgrades. I've been telling Chad behind the scenes. Chad, he's got some. If you see on YouTube, he's got some pretty cool stuff up there. There's a lot of money on that wall. I would say that my wall is a little bit less valuable, just in terms of the trading card aspect. But I mean, you got the X Games, you got the newspaper articles. I got a couple. I got some Tony Romo in-game worn stuff, but that's kind of the most valuable thing on this wall. So hopefully we can get a little bit more valuable in the near future. But that's just a little tidbit.
I am a fan of the trading card game. When I was a kid, I was a big trading card guy. Specifically behind me is basketball cards. How many of those are worth anything? I appreciate you saying that, but how many of those are worth anything? Maybe a handful, but they look cool. You know what I mean, right? They look cool, right? And who knows if they're even worth a lot? They're probably not. But hey, we're gonna keep them there because we got some cool ones. And my mom threw away all the Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and if I displayed those, like, that'd be kind of weird, right? That'd be a little bit weird, if you displayed just Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon cards everywhere. Even though, if you like those, we've talked about Pokemon gaming in the past, so go check out that episode. But more sports this week, all football. If you're not watching on YouTube, you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple. Today we're talking conference championship, head coaching, NFL awards, because the final list came out. We're going to talk about who we think is going to win them and who should win them. We got an NCAA prospect profile like always. Today we're talking Cam Ward. And then we brought back the gaming segment. We're not going to have it every week, but every now and then we're going to have it. And I'll leave it for the end for what game we're going to talk about. But that's going to be a fun one. All right. Conference championship recap. Bills and Commanders fall. Everybody knows it was a bit ago. But I'm just going to start it off with asking you, just put you on the spot a little bit here, with the Bills, right? We're going to start with the Bills and the Chiefs. I know it was a night game, but the Bills and the Chiefs. My thought goes to, what do you think the Bills need to do in the offseason to potentially get past, Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs? There's not a whole lot you can do. I feel like, because the Bills were pretty solid this year, but they didn't get it done again. Is there any immediate area of need? I know they got Amari Cooper, but Coop didn't really do a ton. You could argue Josh didn't really do a ton. So what do you think about Buffalo? What do you think they need going into next year? Because this is a team that's a playoff team, right? This is a team that's expecting to be there every single year, deep in the playoffs.
Yeah, and obviously their defense got gouged a little bit in that game, so you'd want to see some more, defensive guys. They've been losing a couple guys in the secondary at that second level specifically. Some linebackers have been going away. They just lost like two of their biggest safeties like a year or two ago. So obviously on that side of the ball, you want to just, get more young talent, get more guys in there. But in my opinion, where I want to go is, I just keep thinking to those, that fourth down that they didn't convert, the first one, the one that was very controversial on the quarterback run, whatever it was, where it kind of like sneaked to the side. I don't, maybe offensive line, kind of go down there and get some maulers, because I think that's kind of like the biggest thing when it comes to the playoffs, is probably that O-line, and obviously the D-line as well. But the O-line in that situation is kind of the big thing that's standing out to me. And if your guys are a little bit better in that situation, maybe it's not as close of a call, right? You don't want to kind of put it up to the referees in that situation, because they're unfortunately going to pick the Chiefs every single time.
I think that you brought up a good point when you said offensive lineman, and you said a mauler specifically. So there's a guy in this class, and we start to talk about NCAA prospects a whole lot more. Just to let everybody know, these episodes are going to be filled with draft knowledge. So get ready, folks. Also, if you ever want to read this stuff, it's all in articles on rdhsports.net. It's all there, with 30 something pages of this stuff, and you can go back and look at the past couple drafts that I've done. Anyway, you talk about a mauler, a guy that'd be interesting to me, kind of in that range, because Buffalo is going to be later in the first round. I'm not sure he's going to be there, but Kelvin Banks Jr., the offensive tackle out of Texas, the University of Texas. To me, he's like my dark horse for like the best well-rounded tackle in this class. So he's not necessarily like a mauler, but he's a guy that could fit in very nicely there on the offensive side of the ball, specifically in tackle for the Buffalo Bills. But keep going with what you were saying.
When you saw Texas control the ball a lot, this postseason, especially in their run to the semifinals, they were kind of running the ball at times at will. It depended kind of on the game situation, of course, but it seemed like they had, like you said, like maulers down in there. So I would like that a lot. The thing about the Chiefs is you don't want to let things get close. That's the biggest thing with the Chiefs. You don't want to leave it in the hands of someone else. You want to get that first down by a couple yards. You want to try and make things obvious, because apparently, the world we live in is just, it is decided by the refs in some situations. In that play call or in that situation, it was. It does, regardless of who you talk to, they're probably going to be saying different things, probably more on the Bills side, but I saw it a different way than the refs saw it. And then you don't want to have that situation come up again, just like you don't want to have Patrick Mahomes going down 13 seconds, Patrick Mahomes getting the ball in overtime and Josh not touching it the rest of the game. You know what I mean? We saw that in one of their previous matchups. It's just, that one is a little bit harder to, go back and fix from a coaching standpoint. Luckily, they did it on the rules side of things, but this is the biggest game for Buffalo every single year. It's become their Super Bowl. And I mean, heck, they were a game away from it at that point too. So it's probably one of, that was the biggest call. You could say the 4th and 5 play was obviously bigger. Dalton Kincaid could have caught it. Should he have caught it? I don't know. You know what I mean? He's a tight end, but like, I think the tight end's fine. I think their pass catchers, they showed that this year that they don't need a number one guy. Josh is going to be able to get them, and they're going to be able to score points because it's just a really, really good offensive system. Now, I'm not saying a number one wide receiver would be bad, but we've seen that Stephon Diggs as a true number one when he was in Buffalo didn't make as much of a difference as we thought he would in that game, right? It was Gabe Davis. It was, who was the guy this time? Mac Hollins. You know what I mean? Like, so it's just proving to be like unsung heroes in these massive games. So I don't know, man. I would like to go offensive line. I think that is just where the core of a football team should stand. So you get in there, you get Josh a little bit more protection. You're going to be going up against Chris Jones, and that's not a fun time. So do your best to get away and control the football. And I thought they did a really good job of it, just not on that play, man. You saw them run down the field. They ran the ball pretty much every single time. James Cook, Josh Allen, whatever. They threw like one pass and it was a screen pass, go down and get a touchdown. That's playoff football right there. And they're playing it to a T. It's just that ever so slight margin of error. And I think hopefully some more depth, hopefully some bigger guys down in the trenches could get it done.
You nailed it. It's the margin of error. I mean, if you look at NFL games and you look at, I get at the analytics, everyone's into analytics, right? Me included, right? But I'm also a couch warrior, an analytic couch warrior. It sounds like the worst combo. Who's a Cowboy fan? Oh man, that hurts for me to even say. But you have to win the turnover battle. You know what I mean? Every week you see what happens when you don't win the turnover battle. And I understand that, the Bills, Josh Allen had a very, very costly turnover, and he should have had 2 interceptions on the first 4 throws, first of all. But Mahomes, right after the Josh Allen turned it over, then Mahomes turned it over. So it's like, okay, that one kind of negates. But whoever wins the turnover margin's going to most likely win that game. The Lions the previous week did not win the turnover margin. They lost, right? The previous matchup as well in the AFC with the Baltimore Ravens and the Buffalo Bills, Lamar did it twice. And that's not to mention anybody else that lost the ball on the Ravens side as well, right? So it's like if you win the turnover margin, most likely you're going to win that game. And then also, you kind of nailed it with the Dalton Kincaid. I wanted to bring that up, right? Because tight ends are just getting absolutely slaughtered right now, right? Like, Mark Andrews, the week before, that one, check out the thumbnail on the episode. That was it. It's a joke, by the way. We're completely joking. But
wet hands.
Mark Andrews drops that ball, and this pass was completely different. And I listened to an interview with Gronk, and they asked Gronk Point Blank on Overdrive, the podcast I listen to, and they asked him point blank, like, what's out of 10? And Gronk said that's an 8 or 9 out of 10 difficulty to come back and get that ball. So for me, it's like Josh Allen throws up a prayer with 3 people in his face and somehow hits your hands. You would think that, you know, a team that's going to go on to the Super Bowl would probably make that catch, right? You would think that, you know, Gronk in his day would have probably made that catch, right? Like, even more guys back in the day, Tony Gonzalez would have made that catch, right? Like, those guys would have made that catch in that time. And unfortunately, Dalton Kincaid didn't make it. And you couldn't have asked, in my opinion, if you were a Bills fan, for anything else more than that, because you got the ball back with like 3 minutes left in the game. And you didn't, I mean, I get it. You can't leave any time on the clock, but unfortunately they stalled at the end, and they had everything going for them at that point. And when I say everything going for them, I mean, they could have been, you know, the team that had the ball at the end of the game. And before going into this game, everybody knew whoever has the ball at the end of this game is going to win this game. And that's exactly what happened. Right. But we'll hit in Buffalo and more kind of needs and everything that they need going into this offseason. We're going to preview every single, you know, team. We're going to predict their records. We're going to talk about who they're signing and all this kind of stuff. So it's going to be a blast in the offseason. Commanders and Eagles. This one, you know, a rookie quarterback has never, ever, ever won and gone to the Super Bowl. Ever. It's never happened. A rookie quarterback has never won the Super Bowl, right? Never been to the Super Bowl, never started in a Super Bowl. And this game from the beginning with Saquon, I mean, Saquon's first 2 carries were touchdowns, right? So it's just like, you can't really, and if Saquon gets going that early, it's completely over. So Commanders, you take your hat off to them. They were a game away from going to the Super Bowl, and it was Jaden's rookie year. And you can't definitively say that he is, you know, going to be that good for the rest of his career, because you could argue that CJ Stroud, you know, had that good of a rookie season, if not just a little bit less, and kind of, you know, fell off a little bit, not too bad. But overall with Washington this season, man, bright future going ahead, big time bright future for me. This is a team that could absolutely benefit with some wide receivers at the end of the first round. Like, this is a team that could absolutely benefit. You've seen what happens with Terry McLaurin already. You know what I mean? Like, this guy gets the ball all the time. You know it's going to him. Imagine if you could get a guy on that team that wouldn't make you double it. Now, it's going to be tough because it's a later first round wide receiver, because, you know, they're picking, you know, literally at the end of the first round now with where they lost.
Not that tough.
But it's tough, but at the same time, right?
It's not that tough.
You see the Buffalo Bills.
Receivers are a dime a dozen. I love, you know, you will get a good receiver at the beginning. Don't get me wrong. Like your Jamar Chases, you know, your guys that are absolute studs, Malik Neighbors, you know, guys like that. But like AJ Brown went in the second round. You know what I mean? It's like I think DK was in the second round too, if I'm not mistaken.
George Pickens
isn't, like, these guys are number 1 wide receivers through and through. You can get them. I'm not saying it's easy, but I'm saying that the talent is easily still there.
Yeah, and with Washington, I think that they can add some. Every single team needs offensive linemen, right? Like, in my opinion, every single team could use an offensive lineman here, because if one guy, I mean, inevitably they get rolled up on every year. Unfortunately, one offensive lineman. It's very rare that a team makes it through all the way the entire season without one offensive lineman getting hurt at some point throughout the season. So for me, offensive line depth, if I'm Washington, adding a wide receiver in there would be nice. You've got some great tight ends. There's a tight end out of Penn State that would look really good in that Washington Commanders red and that black uniform as well. But man, there's so many ways that Washington could go in this offseason, and it's going to be fun because you have a guy like Jaden Daniels, right? And there's you can't really game plan for him. Right? Like, you can't really replicate a Lamar Jackson. You can't really replicate a Jaden Daniels. You can't really replicate those guys in practice and or in the NFL, really. It's hard to replicate those guys. So it's a fun franchise. Unfortunately, they're in the NFC East with Dallas. But, you know, hey, Dallas is going to get third next year. Anything that you got on the Commanders and, you know, what they could potentially do in the offseason, or, you know, what the heck you like this season? We're gonna hit the head coach in the award section, so don't give Dan Quinn too much props yet.
Yeah, I mean, he's done a fantastic job, obviously, but it's just you you wonder like where this team could improve, and I think there's a lot of spots. This was a team that you didn't really expect on paper to be making these kinds of strides. I think Jaden Daniels, just as a quarterback and as an athlete, is able to give you that advantage that kind of propelled you to those wins with those massive, W's in the playoffs against the Buccaneers and the Lions and things like that. So, honestly, anywhere that's not quarterback, if it's me, like I would go best player available. If you're the Washington Commanders, I think Dan Quinn historically drafts pretty well, and he gets his guys and he knows kind of what he has in the draft. He likes to pick a very specific way. We know he loves his tall, lanky corners. We know he loves his like Richard Sherman type kind of guys, maulers, or big defensive linemen, just guys he can rotate in and out. So he's got packages. He's got small, quick defensive linemen. He's got big guys, but it's just he's gonna get a lot of different types of guys, and just kind of plug and play them in his system. And it doesn't really kind of matter what your name is. It just matters what kind of position you're playing. So I really don't think they're gonna be all that traditional. Just like go out and draft a wide receiver. Maybe they might. Don't get me wrong, but like Dan Quinn is just a guy that it's he gets his guys and they usually work out. But for me, there's not a place not apart from the quarterback that you would say doesn't garner an improvement in the draft.
Well, and this is a team as well that can absolutely and probably will go out and sign a couple big free agents.
Probably.
Right? Because you don't have a ton of guys on the books in terms of salary cap. You have your quarterback that is a rookie quarterback, right? You don't have, Zach Ertz is probably making a little bit, but like that's toward the right. Like you don't have guys that are going to be commanding that much money on that team. A lot of the guys that did is they let go, and that was a lot of the defensive linemen, right? You have one defensive lineman that's getting paid in Washington right now, big bucks, and that's about it. If I'm not mistaken on that entire team, right? So it's like that's going to be a team too that's going to make a splash in the free agent market. And here's the thing, it's interesting to me because it was talks a couple years ago, honestly, that the running backs, it was a dying breed. Don't pick them anymore. Like you don't pick the running backs in the first round. And now it's like you have a guy that's a Sean Jonty that's coming out in the first. There's no way he gets out of the first round. Judkins from Ohio State just declared. Travion Henderson from Ohio State is most likely going to go in the NFL draft as well. We've said it before, can break a 70-yarder on a blink of an eye, right? On a snap of a finger, he can go. So it's like, how much do you really value running backs going forward? Because if you're a team like the Philadelphia Eagles and there's a Saquon Barkley sitting there and you're just like, okay, yeah, we'll take him in free agency. Why not? We need a running back. Let's do it. Right? And Washington's not a team that's going to be scared to go make a move. Dan Quinn's not a scared coach to go make a move, especially with the fact that he got to the NFC Championship in his first season as a head coach with a rookie quarterback. Right? Like this is the team that you can say went above and beyond, unless the Eagles win the Super Bowl. This is a team that went above and beyond the most this season. Every other team, you can't say it. Because if the Chiefs win and they three-peat, it's like, well, they just won 2 in a row. And Mahomes already has another. Right? It's like, when was the last time the Commanders went to the NFC Championship? I don't know. I'm not that good at trivia, right? So it hasn't been my lifetime. I can tell you that because I've been watching those games since I was a kid. So I don't think it's been my lifetime. But
I did see a stat that said now that the Commanders made the NFC Championship, or formerly the Washington football team and other names, now the Dallas Cowboys are the only team left to not make an NFC Championship game. Like they are the one team that hasn't made it. Like they have the longest drought is kind of what the stat is. So
yeah, I mean, because when we were going to the games, we were going to the Cowboy games back when it wasn't AT&T Stadium, back when it was Texas Stadium, and back when it wasn't in Arlington, right? It was where was it?
I think it was the same.
I don't remember.
Similar.
I don't remember. It was some city, but regardless, it was the old stadium. You walked in, you felt the history. It was awesome. But here's the thing: you segued it perfect because now we're talking about the Cowboys, right? And now we're talking about the head coach specifically of the Cowboys. If I had a feather and I had a cap, I would put the feather in the cap because we called that one, right? I would have so many feathers
Technically.
in this cap of calls, right? We would. We would. Go back and watch last week's episode. We nailed it. And we said it was him or Kellen Moore.
It's true.
And it came down to him or Kellen Moore, right?
Yeah.
Now, I'm gonna let you go. I'm gonna let you go ahead and go. I've been, I went on a bit of a rant, right? Been on a bit of a rant. Got a lot of love for it. So thanks, folks. But what do you think about Brian Schottenheimer? What do you think about this wonderful hire that the Cowboys made? Actually, I gotta ask you a question first. I gotta ask you a question. Is this the worst hire of the entire coaching carousel in the offseason? Yes or no?
Dude, I don't know. Duval over there in Jacksonville is kind of funny.
Yes.
With Liam Cohen. Duval.
Duval. That was horrible, dude.
That was pretty funny.
That was painful to watch. I was like, don't do it. And the way he like cocked his neck, it's like, no, he's about to. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
I think we're taking second place though. I don't. I mean, the only thing is, I like Schottenheimer. I like, he has a history. His dad was a very famous head coach, and he was, partly due to the reason that Dak had his, as well of a season as he did under Mike McCarthy. Now that's kind of the only praise you can really say about it. This whole hire, but I just don't really know what it brings to you. Like what does it bring to the team? How are we improving? What is getting better about this whole roster, about this whole team as just a football team? What can we expect from Brian Schottenheimer? A better offense? I don't know, maybe. A better defense? Probably not. We do have Eberflus now is the defensive hire, but I don't think any of that defense is going to come from him. You know what I mean? But no, man, there's not a whole lot to kind of go off of. Like where's the resume? What has he done? You know what I mean?
I have a better resume on Madden. I'm not going to lie.
Well, you look at Mike McCarthy, Super Bowl champion, when he came and stayed at Jerry's house, which was funny.
Nice little sleepover.
He's been to many NFC championship games. Like he's been there, he's done that. He knows how to get to the top of the mountain. But like, I can't say the same thing about Schottenheimer. Now, Jerry in his press conference, he's like, I know, the thing about hiring a head coach that's never been a head coach before and is unprecedented, stuff like that. And it's like, okay, but like, yeah, sure, it's cool, it's fun, but like, if it doesn't work out, you're gonna look like an idiot again.
He already does.
And it's just, maybe it brings the culture back. That's kind of the whole thing that I would like. If you're a fan, you don't want them to just have the culture of losing the playoffs again. You know what I mean? That's just, you want the culture
if they make it.
True. You want that culture of winning. You want that culture of clutchness, just the doing the right things in the biggest moments, not shining in the brightest lights is kind of the biggest thing for me. I don't know. It's a questionable hire.
To hit on a couple things you said, right? It's like, every day in life, right? Every day in life, you try to get a little bit better, right? Personally, right? Try to get a little bit better every day in life. Professionally, hey, I'm a random professional person and I decide to leave this organization so I can go to another organization. Usually it's a lateral or like an upgrade, right? You don't ever go down. And even going laterally is kind of like, it's not the best thing to do. I would argue that this organization went down in terms of head coach, right? I would say that Mike McCarthy, I would put as a better head coach than Brian Schottenheimer. Now we don't know, right? Jerry this could be the last rabbit's foot that he has in his pocket, right? That he's just been rubbing that little rabbit's foot for like 50 years, and finally it's about to just work out here, right? Or 20 years, because 50 years he's won like 5 Super Bowls. Past 20 years, let's do that. But here's the thing. The reason you do it, and it's obvious if you've watched the Cowboys, it's very obvious, and you pretty much just hit on it. Dak Prescott is signed. CeeDee Lamb is signed. Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb are both very familiar with Schottenheimer. So for me, the reason they did that hire and the reason that Kellen Moore came in there too is, again, familiar with those two guys, right? Specifically, Kellen Moore, way more familiar with Dak than CD, but still familiar with those two guys, right? So for me, it's a move that it's a downgrade. I'm not saying it's a good move. I personally think it's the worst move of the offseason until the Duval incident happened. And unfortunately, that guy's going to be gone, not next year, but probably the year after. And his combined record is going to be 8 in however many losses that is. He's going to win 4 games a season, and that's going to be it, in my opinion. But with Brian Schottenheimer, he brings in a guy from the Chicago Bears with Eberflus that, I mean, got criticized a lot in Chicago, got criticized a lot. And you can argue that the defense at times did not look like the Chicago defense did of old. So for me, that's another hire that it's like, okay, I'm good with that hire, because last year the defense, it definitely started to get better in terms of the Dallas Cowboys toward the end of the year with Micah Parsons, like you said. But that's not enough. You know what I mean? Especially in a division where you are playing against 2 teams that just went to the NFC Championship. And the Eagles are going to be back every single year. I'm not sure about the Commanders. I'm not sure. I don't know yet. If Jaden continues to do what he's doing and they continue to get better, right? Big time. But that's kind of the thoughts on the head coach hire on the Dallas side. My biggest thing is he's going to be here for the rest of Dak's contract, right? So is this the final kick at the can with Dak Prescott? Because honestly, a lot of Cowboy fans thought last time with Mike McCarthy was the final kick in the can. But now it's like, hey, we're going to give it a little bit more time, right? We're going to sign Dak Prescott before we even start the freaking season and before we don't even make the playoffs, right? So that's kind of how I think it's going. And honestly, it is a massive, massive offseason for the Dallas Cowboys. It's very simple because every other team in your division, sorry, New York, has gotten a lot better. So
even then,
you have
getting
to
rid of Daniel
replicate
Jones makes them better. Maybe not getting rid of Saquon.
Hey.
But Tyrone Tracy ain't bad.
Yeah, but Saquon, right?
Saquon.
Yeah, exactly. But it's going to be a fun offseason. Hopefully for the Cowboys fans. I'm not sure it's actually going to be, but I'm hoping for it big time.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think I want to hit on Eberflus too, because you kind of like skimmed over it a little bit, but the thing is, like, this is the hire that is kind of like I'm a little questioning, my sanity, because I'm not saying it's a good hire, but I'm saying that I don't hate it, amongst other things. Like, I get it. I would have liked, like, Robert Saleh or like Aaron Glenn or guys like that, but all things considered, there wasn't like a Mike Vrabel out there. You know what I mean? There wasn't a guy that's gonna be one of the better defensive coordinators. Like, you could say Saleh, 100%.
Pete Carroll's out there.
Pete Carroll, but I mean that's more of a head coaching kind of thing. With Pete Carroll, he's going for that head coaching spot. The only guy that I would have put above. I mean, maybe it depends on where you sit with Aaron Glenn, but obviously Saleh. But when Eberflus obviously has connections with the Cowboys, but I mean, the reason he got that Bears head coaching job is because he did such a good job in Indianapolis with that defense and when they're flying around. So it's kind of like with DQ, where it's like he can take a step back, kind of simplify things a little bit, and then go in there and make that defense right a little bit. He has a lot of talent on there. So I don't know. I don't think it's the worst hire in the world. I don't think it's Mike Zimmer bad. So it's just kind of a weird hire, but I don't think it's a bad hire.
So I'm looking at it right now with the actual stats from last season. The Bears were only one position above the Dallas Cowboys in terms of defensive yards average allowed per game, and they are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're 6th worst in the league. The Cowboys are 5th worst in the league.
No, yeah,
and it's a difference between 1 yard. But the interesting thing is they gave up a lot less touchdowns. Dallas gave up 55 touchdowns allowed, but the Chicago Bears gave up only 37 touchdowns allowed. And what's also interesting is that the Detroit Lions gave up 37 touchdowns allowed, and they're like 10 rankings above where the Chicago Bears are. So that's why I wanted to call that out, because it's one of those it's like one of those picks in the draft, right? When you get Zach Martin at the time, And you're like, that's a great offensive lineman. I thought they were going to go Johnny Manziel. I'm glad they didn't, looking at it in hindsight. But kind of like getting the Xbox controller, right? You don't get the whole Xbox, just get the Xbox controller.
No,
you know what I mean?
No, and I think, and I'm not saying that the Chicago Bears years don't matter, but I just think that as a head coach, you have a lot more responsibilities to deal with. You're not going to be, solely dealing with the defense. Sure, you're going to have a hand in it, and it's going to be like decent, but can you go there and sit and say that, Dan Quinn is doing the exact same thing on the Cowboys or on the Commanders that he was doing on the Cowboys? No, because he's the head coach. He has to worry about the offense too. You know what I mean? He's got to worry about a whole lot of other things. And that defense is not nearly as good as, the defense that he had with Dallas. Sorry, there's a lot of noise behind me. But if, you look and kind of see in his defensive coordinator's position, I don't know. I don't hate it. I think taking a step back is always a good thing, especially when you kind of had the season and the time that you did in Chicago. But all things considered, we were never saying that the Chicago defense is this horrible, horrible defense all year long in recent memory. We were saying that they have some good key players, and a lot of it's a lack of motivation, a lack of confidence, going into those games with the results that they had in that season and with the kind of the way things played out in a lot of those games, just a lot of mistakes that could have been easily, remedied. Not, a lot of them were from the head coaching position, but that's the thing is, in a head coaching spot, he's not going to be pressured to take a timeout on Thanksgiving. That's going to be Schottenheimer's job. You know what I mean? He's going to have to go in there and worry about the defense. So I think a simplified version is going to help him in a lot of ways. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be amazing. It's kind of hard to live up to Dan Quinn's defense, looking back and what he did in Dallas, but it can't get a whole lot worse. It's kind of the bottom line and the silver lining of the whole thing. So the only kind of hire that I don't disagree with, I don't exactly love it. Like I said, would have liked Saleh over him. But man, you just, Jerry's got his own prerogative. He's going to pick his guys. Really surprised it's not Kellen Moore in here. But Schottenheimer, Eberflus, they're names that have kind of been floating around the NFL sphere for a long, long time. So I think that's kind of where Jerry went with it. It's a disgusting hire, probably in both regards, but don't hate the Eberflus one. The thing I do dislike, though, and you'll kind of attest to this, and for some reason, all you guys keep going back and looking at that reel from 2 years ago with Al Harris, man, that's the one I'm pissed about. That's the one that pisses me off, because I thought that our secondary was genuinely getting better. Growing up a Cowboys fan, I got to look at, Orlando Scandrick, Morris Claiborne, Brandon Carr, Barry Church. Yeah. I like Church though. He was good back in when he was sitting back there at the safety, but
specifically coverage though. I'm giving you bad coverage. Jeff Heath.
Oh, don't say Jeff Heath. Don't say that one. Yeah, DBs for Dallas, just in my lifetime, have not been anything special. Historically, you have so many. One. Yeah.
Aside from one.
True. I mean, you could throw Trayvon in there if you want to as well. Trayvon.
Well, true. Yeah, you could. Sorry, I was going to say, just to jump in real quick, when you were a wee little lad, they had a guy by the name of Roy Williams, and I remember he ran out with the flag at that game, and you and I both were like, that was cool.
Yeah, and that motherfucker would hit, sorry for the language, we're past like 30 minutes, he would hit you like a truck. You know what I mean? You would catch the ball, and he would, that's going to be a fumble pretty much every time. You see Roy
in another country.
You see Roy coming down. It's not going to be a fun time. You don't got the guys like that anymore. And I'm not saying, maybe it's the rules, maybe it's stuff like that, but in my lifetime, Trayvon Diggs is the best thing we've had. And that's not saying a lot, man. And Deron Bland may be the second best. Maybe you could throw in I'd say up there is help me, Byron.
Byron Jones.
Byron Jones, yeah.
Is that because he broke? Yeah, it's because the old Byron Jones had a hell of a combine, and then we wanted to move. Dallas wanted to move him
or something.
Yeah, the high jump, and Dallas wanted to move him to free safety. And then he ended up going to Miami and getting paid in Miami, and then I'm not sure if he's still in the league or not. But he's not the best track record in terms of defensive backs for the Cowboys.
Fun fact too.
You kind of nailed it there.
Fun fact too, that Aaron Rodgers game, with the with the
Big
game on
facts there.
with the game on the line. That was Brandon Carr's or not Brandon Carr, Byron Jones's coverage that he just kind of was like,
Oh,
so
the Martellus. Yeah, I remember that. I do remember
or
that one.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, but was that the I don't remember who caught the ball. You remember in 2016 was it? Yeah, 20
I think it was.
Zeke and
Yeah.
Dak's rookie year. That's when Byron Jones said goodbye. We'll say it like
Yeah.
that.
Pain. Absolute pain.
At that
And
game. Crosby walked it off.
Yeah. there you go. There you go. Went to Georgetown High School. Shout out Georgetown High School. Awards. NFL honors. Let's get into this. They came out with a list of 5 for each of them. Right now, we've got for most valuable player, got Josh Allen there, got Saquon Barkley, got Joe Burrow, got Jared Goff, and Lamar Jackson.
That's MVP.
For MVP. Yeah. I think that, we've already kind of had this discussion before, right? And it's hard now to really not have the exact same discussion. But unfortunately, I think it's going to come down to 2 guys, even though Saquon had a heck of a year. I think if Saquon breaks the record, I think that maybe something changes.
I still don't think he gets it because
No, probably not.
the NFL PA or the NFL, not the PA, the people who are voting for it, they're a little, they lean a certain way. Put it like that.
For the Qs, lean the quarterback.
Yes,
lean the quarterback a certain way.
Definitely lean towards the better position. I would put it.
Well, one of the best running backs seasons I've seen personally. My nod would literally be to, if I could, I would give it to Saquon, but that's not going to happen. Most likely, I think it's going to go to Lamar Jackson, but I think realistically, in terms of ranking, it's going to be Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson. You can take one or two, whoever you are. I think Saquon's going to be sitting there at 3, and then probably Burrow at 4 and Jared Goff at 5. Like I said, I would pick Saquon. If you got to pick one guy, who would you pick?
I would just because Josh has never won it. Obviously, I'm kind of more towards him. I'm gonna pick Josh Allen. I think what Saquon is doing is what was historic this season. So I really think that you can absolutely throw him a bone. But I would pick Josh Allen just because I think what he's doing is the types of throws that he made was incredible. Just stuff we've never seen before. Mahomes MVP type throws, stuff that is just he's scrambling around for the entire time, trying to make space in the pocket. 11, 12 seconds goes by, throws a dart to the corner of the end zone, and you're like, who the heck even is that guy who caught that ball? You know what I mean? That was all Josh Allen. So I don't know. Lamar's doing the exact same thing on the other side though, which makes it such a debate. But I think the fact that Lamar played one more game is the reason that he's going to get that MVP. I think it's kind of dumb, but I think that's just kind of how the stats tell it, and you can't say that the stats are wrong. You know what I mean? He did get more touchdowns, like he did get more rushing yards, like he did do all of these other things that Josh didn't. So I think Lamar will get the MVP, and I think it's deserved. I'm not going to go out here and say that's not, because Lamar is playing the best he's ever played, and this is probably the most deserved MVP he's ever had. So I love Lamar's game, and I hope he continues to get better, because if he gets better on top of this, I will be even more impressed. But I just love what Josh was doing. I just think that Lamar's going to probably have like 7 MVPs by the time he's done if he keeps on doing this, man. Because it's just you can't compete with someone who's rushing for almost 1,000 yards every single season. You know what I mean? On top of that, he's almost getting almost like consistently having 4,000 passing yards. It's like people don't do that. That's just a thing that people don't do. So that's the reason why I think he will win it, and why I think he should win it. But in my opinion, I'd like to throw Josh a bone just for the incredible season that he's had. And if Lamar doesn't get MVP in 1 year, boo-hoo. You know what I mean? I think last year was the year that Lamar could have not gotten the MVP, but no one stepped up. You know what I mean? So that's kind of what it de facto to him. So I don't know, man. It's I'd like Josh to win it. I don't think he will. Maybe in the future we'll get some running backs winning it, but quarterback's most important position in sports, in my opinion, and it's the most sought after, I'd say, position probably in sports. At least in American sports. But it's like the most high profile. It's always going to get all the attention. You're the one with the ball every single play. You're the leader of the defense. You're the general, everything like that. Your responsibilities are so much higher than any other position in the NFL and in other sports. So I think that's kind of why it leans towards that quarterback bias, just because it is one of the hardest positions to play in such a difficult league. So I wish Saquon could get it, but I don't think
I
he will.
wish you could too, dude. I really he jumped over a freaking guy backwards.
What
Like,
about
what
like
more do you want him to do?
what about like
You know what I mean?
OPOY? Because that's not going to go, probably not going to go to a quarterback.
No, and we'll hit that in just a second. Next, we're hitting DPOY.
Oh, okay.
Zach Bond for the Eagles, which it's going to be hard
Yeah,
to not give it to him
he's
because
had a
he
hell of a
had
year.
such a good season out of Wisconsin. Miles Garrett, Giggs from Cleveland, Trey Hendrickson from the Bengals.
I'd love to give it to him.
Well, maybe Trey gets it because I think Trey led in sacks, if I'm not mistaken, at the end of the season.
He did.
Patrick Surtain is there again for the Broncos. I mean, this guy is just
Sneaky
the elite
good.
of the elite,
Sneaky good
elite
season.
of the elite, and the guy that always seemingly there. Which this season I don't think he's realistically top 3 in my opinion. TJ Watt. But
TJ
you
Watt made
kind
it?
of got to, yeah. TJ Watt's on there as well.
That's just a popular vote.
Yeah, I'm going. To me, it's real hard to. I would like to give it. It's cool to give it to a cornerback, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think Zach Bond kind of walks away with it this year, and then you've got Trey Hendrickson, you got Miles Garrett, then Pat Surtain, in my opinion, and T.J. Watt. What do you think about this list, and specifically, what do you think of who should take it home this year in DPOY?
Yeah, I'm looking through and just kind of I want to see kind of like the Miles Garrett's numbers from last year, the year he did win DPOY. And I want to say he had 14 sacks, which is nothing crazy. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, 14 sacks. And he had obviously a couple other things, fumble return or fumble recovered, stuff like that. He had a couple like blocked field goals, I think 1 or 2 in that season as well. So like he was kind of all around the field. It's kind of why they gave him that DPOY. But I think Hendrickson ended with like 17, 18 sacks, something like that. He's if it doesn't go to Zach Bond, which I think he should have it because he's just flowing around the field. If you had him in fantasy, you were literally like putting up like 20 points a week with that player alone. So it seems like he's always just kind of like gravitating towards the ball, kind of making a play on the ball and always getting that lodged out or getting an interception. You know what I mean? He's just like becoming that leader of that defense, and it's benefiting the Eagles so greatly. And especially now that Nakobe Dean's out in the playoffs, he has to play an even bigger role, and it looks like he's playing even better. So I'm curious to see what he does in the Super Bowl, but obviously the postseason stuff doesn't kind of factor into regular season voting. But man, he's had a fantastic season. If he doesn't win it, I would like Hendrickson to win it, just based on the absolute domination that he had on probably one of the worst Cincinnati defenses. So I mean, he was like the shining star on that Cincinnati defense, and they doubled him pretty much every single time because there's not anyone else you need to worry about on that line. God, trust me, go back and watch those episodes. I'm like, please, somebody else do something, and they just didn't. But he still is like getting to the quarterback and making the Cincinnati's defense look at least a little good. So I like Trey Hendrickson, but I think it'll go to Zach Bond, and I think it's deserved. So I think the last time we had a cornerback win it wasn't it Stephon Gilmore when he was on the Patriots and he had that crazy year? I think so.
Yeah, sorry, we had a dog malfunction. The Husky started to howl, so we had to mute that up a little bit. Husky is out of the building now, out of the room. Yes, Stephon Gilmore had a hell of a season. I'm pretty sure he's the last.
I think he's the last corner
to win DPOY. We can look at that up.
Very recent.
I'll look that up. I know that in terms of like defensive rookie of the year, I know that like Sauce won that last.
Yeah, he did.
Because I remember Sauce won that. But yeah, Stephon Gilmore. Wow. Really? Only 6 cornerbacks have ever won DPOY. Charles Woodson, defensive back technically there. Stephon Gilmore, Lester Hayes, Mel Blount, Deion Sanders, and Darrelle Revis.
I mean, those all sound like they deserve a DPOY. Those players probably deserve a DPOY.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Never mind. There's definitely more there. Okay. So there's 11 total in terms of defensive backs. Anderson, Mel Blount, Hayes, Easley, Woodson. Yeah, I was waiting for that one. Sanders, Ed Reed, Charles Woodson, Troy Polamalu, Stephon Gilmore. Yeah, you nailed it. Good job. That was a nice little thing there. Anyway, this year's offensive player of the year.
There we go.
I always find it so funny that you give MVP and offensive player of the year like different awards. That makes no sense to me.
Because it's a goddamn quarterback award.
It is a quarterback award specifically. But Saquon, same guy. Joe Burrow, same. But now we add Jamar Chase, Derrick Henry, and Lamar Jackson. So sorry, Derrick Henry. The nod goes to Saquon this year. And then in terms of quarterback, kind of crazy that Josh Allen's not even in there. But hey, we did look at his stats, and we've already kind of chatted about that.
That's crazy. Josh is not in there, but Lamar is.
It's got to be Saquon.
It has to. No,
it
or
has
Jamar.
to be Saquon.
Or Jamar. Jamar had a fantastic year, but I don't think you can take away what Saquon is doing, because we've seen.
Did Justin Jefferson win it in his year? I don't think so. Right?
Offensive Player of the Year. Whenever he had his whatever crazy season he had. I don't.
Yeah, I'm gonna look that up.
Maybe I think Tyreek Hill won it at one point, because he had I don't remember. Cooper Kupp won it when he had the Triple Crown and he had almost 2,000 yards receiving. That's impressive.
That is true.
That's very impressive. I think Jamar also had the Triple Crown this year. It's just not as nearly as impressive of a Triple Crown as we've seen though. I still give it to Saquon just because 2,000 rushing yards is, people don't do that. You know what I mean? People
He
don't
did.
do that.
Okay. Yeah, he did. So it's a lot of running backs, some quarterbacks in there as well. But you had Christian.
I was gonna say I would give it to Josh, but I didn't realize he's not even on the docket.
Yeah, no, he's not even there. But McCaffrey got it last year. Justin Jefferson got it 2022.
Yeah.
Cooper Kupp got it in 21. Derrick Henry in 2020. What's kind of crazy, who got it in 2019? Michael Thomas got Offensive Player of the Year in 2019. You remember that season?
Oh, dude, the Saints were going. That's when
that season was absurd. He went off that season.
That was the end of Drew Brees.
Yeah, it was. Mahomes is 2018. Todd Gurley in 2017. Matt Ryan 16. 2015. Cam Newton. Ready for this one? Last one, and then you could say it. 2014. DeMarco Murray.
Yeah. I want to say too, in that 2016 season, Matt Ryan won Offensive Player of the Year. Didn't he also win MVP?
I'm pretty sure he did.
So you can win both.
Yeah, and then you go back to in the 2000s. Yeah. Marshall Faulk won it 3 years in a row.
Wow. I mean, he's pretty good.
Dude, the running backs, 1994 is Barry Sanders won it, right? Then Brett Favre in 95. Listen to these running backs that won Offensive Player of the Year from 1996 to 2003. Ready for this? 1996, Terrell Davis. 97, Barry Sanders. 98, Terrell Davis. 99, Marshall Faulk. 2000, Marshall Faulk. 2001, Marshall Faulk.
Heck yeah, dude.
2002, Priest Holmes.
Yeah.
2003, Jamal Lewis. That's some squads there. That is some absolute. I mean, hey, it's the best offensive player that year, and that makes complete and total sense. We both think Saquon's going to get that one. Okay, should we move on to offensive rookie of the year now?
Yeah,
this is a good one because there's two guys for me that's well, this is tough now. Okay, Brock Bowers. That's the guy that I'm it's really hard not to give it to Brock Bowers, the tight end for the Las Vegas Raiders. Jaden Daniels, quarterback Commanders. Malik Neighbors, Giants wide receiver. Bo Nix, which I'm okay, Denver. And then Brian Thomas Jr., the wide receiver for Jacksonville Jaguars.
This is obvious.
You going Jaden?
It has to be. I mean, the NFC Championship.
It's him or Bowers.
I get it. What Bowers did was awesome, and he's leading all.
He broke
rookies.
every rookie tight end record you could break. So
but you forget that he's not a quarterback. And that's the tough
part. He's not what?
He's not a quarterback. He's
I
not.
thought you said he's not cool.
Oh
I was
no,
like,
Brock
"You're an
Bowers is
asshole."
Brock Bowers
He's
is so
sick.
cool, dude. He's the Bowers hour.
Literally, that's
um,
sick.
I love Brock Bowers. He's awesome, and that team was horrible. No offense to Vegas, but they were.
Oh, they were bad.
He had like Gardner Minshew, Aiden O'Connell, and I don't even know who the other guy was throwing him the ball. But he's just ripping dimes. He's catching touchdowns. So I
He's
like
ripping dimes.
dude, it has to be Jaden. I mean, Jaden, what he's doing is just historic. You know, he's had a fantastic rookie season. He led his team to like a 12-5 record or whatever it was, and he looked really, really good doing it. And he's the reason that they were that good. We talked about it in previous segment. Like
100%.
if
Nobody else. If he was not there, the Washington Commanders would not even be close to that spot. No way.
he's fantastic, and I think he deserves it. If it doesn't go to him, I'd be really surprised. It's got to be Jaden. I just think it has to be.
For defensive rookie of the year, you've got Cooper DeJean, cornerback out of Iowa. Told you that kid was going to be 1 or 2 in this draft. Braden Fisk, the Los Angeles Rams defensive end. Get ready for this. You ready for this? Number 1 and number 2 cornerbacks that I had ranked. Quinyon Mitchell, the cornerback out of Toledo for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. Philly's got 2 on there. And then Chop Robinson from old Penn State, Miami Dolphins linebacker. And then Jared Verse, the Los Angeles Rams again. So, you've got teams that are starting to draft really well. The Eagles going into last year needed a cornerback and needed a running back. They addressed 2 corners in the draft. They have 2 players up for defensive rookie of the year, and they got Saquon, who's up for offensive rookie of the year and freaking MVP. Shouts out Philadelphia. Shouts out to the Los Angeles Rams. But it's really not a conversation for me. I completely agree with you. It's Jared Verse. Like Jared Verse just had just a stupid good season. And like I knew Jared Verse was going to be good coming out of college, coming out of Florida. I knew he was going to be good, but this just brought on a whole new level. The fact that they get both linebackers or defensive end and a linebacker in the same draft round apart. Like, I mean, come on, man. That's absurd. So yeah, I'm right there with you on that. You got anything else on defensive rookie of the year?
I think it's a little bit more. I think it's a little bit more of a question for me for defensive rookie because
really,
I think Quinyon Mitchell has been fantastic. I think that he
has for sure.
I think he's been the best rookie corner by far. I think he surpasses Cooper DeJean just by the fact that I think since he played since like the beginning of the year, and he's had a year of tape and it's looked really, really, really good. So we've seen corners win it very many times. And I just think that he kind of locked down that side of the field towards the end of the year, and he did a really good job, just being such like just glue. You would watch those games and it'd be like, dude, how the heck is he doing that? You're like, what? Like he absolutely eliminated Terry McLaurin in both times this season. Face to face, boom, he's done. Terry McLaurin was not productive against the Eagles at all this year. So in the NFC Championship game, he caught that touchdown. But other than that, again, you don't count the playoffs. But in the regular season, I thought he was lights out. But I still would give it to Jared Verse just because he's been that game wrecker. And he's been the motor behind that Rams defense on kind of, we've been saying it all year, a young Rams defense that's very unproven, that's very hungry, that wants to get out there and make plays and fly around the field. And it looks like the Rams defense that we know and love, from the Super Bowl years. I'm not saying he looks like Aaron Donald. I'm saying that he's got some spark in him, and I hope it can turn into something that's much, much more. And I think he's just off to a great start. And I think he put his name on a lot of people's lists in that NFC divisional round against the Eagles, because he had like 3 sacks. He was like the only one doing anything on the Rams defense.
And not to mention the amount of shit he talked before the game. Like he literally went to, I think it was Twitter, Instagram, was like, I don't like Eagles fans. And then he walked around shirtless, like interacting with the Eagles fans, and then proceeded to get 3 sacks in their house. Now he lost. So the Eagles have the say at the end of the day, but still, to do that in a playoff game as a rookie, man, I'd be interested to see when the last rookie got 3 sacks in a playoff game was. I can guarantee you it hasn't happened more than 10 times. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and the thing is, again, they don't count the playoffs, but in my eyes, that's kind of what put him apart from the rest. I know you wouldn't count that for the voting, but I just think he's a fantastic young player, and I think he deserves that award. And he's just getting better every single game. So
Yeah, absolutely. And the comeback player of the year now. We've got Joe Burrow, Sam Darnold. It's going to be hard because Sam Darnold's on there. It's going to be hard to not give it to Sam Darnold, just saying that right now. J.K. Dobbins. You have Christian Gonzalez as well, and then DeMar Hamlin. Who do you got on these?
Christian Gonzalez is on here. That's pretty awesome. He did have a good year, but I'm giving it to Joe Burrow. I think he had a more impressive season than Sam Darnold, and I think Joe Burrow needs to walk away with at least one award from this season because I don't know how the heck he's not in any of the other voting because he's awesome. He had a fantastic year. If they made the playoffs, I promise you he'd be in some of those other votings, but I would like him to go home with an award. Now, I'm not just like giving him the de facto award because it's Joe Burrow, because he played better than Sam Darnold. Period. You know, Joe Burrow was the Cincinnati Bengals. I don't think you can say that about Sam Darnold. I don't think you can say that even a little bit, especially those last two games. Those last two games really cemented it for me, specifically the one against the Lions. Obviously, regular season. Sam Darnold at points he just looked bad. He was just like, what is this? Against the Jacksonville Jaguars? Why are we putting up like 15 points, dude? It's like one of the worst teams in the league. What do you have Justin Jefferson, Jordan what are you doing? You know, Christian Darrisaw came over to play like you're on your tackle and you're doing this. So I don't know. It's
yeah, you know, Christian Darrisaw, he got hurt, but at the same time, it's like
yeah, you got all these guys. It's like what the heck are you doing there? You know what I mean? Like what are you doing there? And that's the contract that I can't wait to see what's going to happen. Like Minnesota has to bring him back. Yeah. And Minnesota, he could inevitably go like 4-12 or 13 because there's 17 games now. It's like he could, but you know, that's one we'll get into in the offseason because we're going to be talking about that quarterback race big time.
If you're comparing those two quarterbacks in a void, I think Joe Burrow takes it every single time.
Yes.
Without a doubt. So I think this comes down to those two guys. And it's just, in my mind, I think Joe Burrow takes it every single time. So I would love to have.
Unless you're just like a diehard like USC guy. You know what I mean? Like you're like that delusional USC guy. It's like, nah, Darnold's better, dude. You know what I mean?
Yeah, dude, those USC quarterbacks, they really kill it in the NFL, huh?
As you got Caleb Williams right behind you. Hey, it's a good looking jersey. And you know,
change.
we got a shout out on campus for that jersey. I'm like, I didn't realize I whatever.
Got a shout out from the electrician guy who came in one time and was like, got a Caleb Williams jersey. I'm a Bears fan. And I'm like, cool, dude. I just like the jersey.
That's sick. Shout out to that electrician. Okay. Assistant coach of the year, then we're gonna go coach of the year, and that's it for the awards. This one's interesting to me. Joe Brady, the Bills offensive coordinator, Vic Fangio, the Eagles defensive coordinator, Brian Flores, the Minnesota Vikings defensive coordinator, Aaron Glenn, Detroit Lions defensive coordinator, and Ben Johnson, Detroit Lions offensive coordinator. A lot of those guys have already been hired, which is kind of interesting. But
comes down to two guys for me.
It comes down to both. Like, who you got two for you? Is it the same? I want to know if it's the
same. The Bills OC and then Ben Johnson.
Yeah.
Detroit OC.
Joe Brady and Ben Johnson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are the most prolific offenses. And I think Detroit had the best offense. So
what about Vic Fangio though?
Vic Fangio is doing a hell of a job there in Philly, but
they ended the season like number one defense wise.
They were
the Eagles did.
Probably the only defense that I could rely on. You know, that I could like reliably say was stout. They're not going to give you space. You know what I mean? But it took a while to get there. You know, I think what they did was not as impressive as what the Bills were doing all year, what the Lions were doing all year. Jared Goff throwing 5 picks and still somehow winning that game. You know what I mean? Like they just were a unit. So I think it's going to go to Ben Johnson, especially since he was like that highest tier of coaching candidate for head coaching candidate. So I think that he just kind of garners that respect in the NFL world, and I think they're going to give it to him.
Ben Johnson, I'm kind of there too. And then coach of the year, last award, we got Dan Campbell, we got Kevin O'Connell for the Minnesota Vikings, Dan Campbell, Detroit Lions, Sean Payton, Denver Broncos, Dan Quinn, Washington Commanders, and Andy Reid, Kansas City Chiefs. It's funny because Andy Reid's not going to get a sniff. Like, he's literally just not going to get a sniff, even though, he only lost 2 games, and realistically, they didn't play their starters in that last game, so it could have only been 1. Dan Quinn, it's going to be hard to vote against him because, I mean, again, you're not supposed to be able to vote, or you're not supposed to be able to talk about playoffs because the votes were already cast. These are the finalists. But it's hard to say with the rookie quarterback. Sean Payton, what he did's good. Kevin O'Connell, unfortunately, you can't, not at the end of the season. He kind of lost it. You can't do it. And then you got Dan Campbell.
14,
Who do you got?
What was the line or the Vikings final record? It was like 14-3, right? Something like that. So, I mean, it's hard. If you just count regular season, it's going to be tough. If the Vikings go out there and beat the Lions and get the number 1 seed,
they get it. 100%.
I think Kevin O'Connell gets it. I like Kevin O'Connell a lot. But
yeah,
I just don't. It's hard because it comes down to Kevin O'Connell for me, Dan Campbell. Well, Dan's not even. Is Dan on that? Did you say Dan?
Dan Quinn.
Dan Quinn.
And Dan Campbell. Both Dans.
They're both on there. Okay, cool. It comes down to those 3: Dan Campbell, Dan Quinn, and Kevin O'Connell. I would love to put Sean Payton in there just because what he's doing is really, really impressive with Bo Nix, but it's not like what Dan Quinn is doing is more impressive, and he's kind of doing the same thing. You know what I mean? So Andy Reid, same thing. Been here, done that. Same song, same dance. Give it to someone else. I would probably give it to Dan Campbell. I think Dan Campbell's my pick. Just based on how really bad the Lions were like 2 years ago, that like 0-16 team or whatever the heck it was. And he just gets that win, gets Jared Goff, they start rolling, and it's a new era in Detroit. So I think he's turned them around. It's really, do you value, the turnaround over a couple years, or do you value and the number 1 seed, of course, or do you value the turnaround from last season, completely new coaching staff, everything like that? So it's hard.
I mean, and also,
I wish they could all win.
Mention,
just give it the
right.
all.
Yeah, you're a big participation trophy guy for some reason.
That's not good.
Yeah, for real. My thing, yeah, I'm right there with you. My thing with those guys is that you kind of have to give it to Dan Campbell because if you look at the body of work and how he got the number 1 seed, who he beat, the division, the strength
division
of that division all time.
That's true.
In terms of division rankings of all time. And here's my kicker right here. The fact that he had 16 players on the injured reserve on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, think about that. 16 guys. Right now that's not every single starter is out. Right? That's not that's 3rd and 4th string guys as well. But still, 16 on one side of the ball.
That's a starting lineup in almost a half. That's like 1.5, almost 1.5 like of a starting lineup. That's crazy, dude. You have how many? Like 52, 53 players on that roster, excuse me. And that's impressive. And I want to say to your point too, Kevin Stefanski, whenever he won it, whenever the Browns had like that all-time, however many starting quarterbacks in one season year with Joe Flacco to bring him in the playoffs, didn't he win Coach of the Year that year? With all those injuries, with all that stuff and all that considered. So I think now that you say that, with all the guys on injured reserve, all that, I'm definitely going to go with Dan Campbell, just because in the eyes of the voters, that's kind of what they value. You know, they value adversity. And like overcoming that adversity. So yeah, in my eyes, I think Dan Campbell 100%, he probably had the toughest road by far of any head coach. And you look at Dan Quinn, he lost to the Eagles twice this year and had a lot of really big wins, but at the same time, he's not the number 1 seed. Same with Kevin O'Connell. He's not the number 1 seed. He, in fact, he lost to the guy who's probably going to win that award. So like you said, and like we said like 5 minutes ago, whoever wins that game at the end of the year between the Lions and the Vikings probably wins that award. So
literally couldn't have said it better. All right. That is all it for the NFL section of the pod. NCAA time. We got prospect profile. This is going to be a good one. We got Cam Ward. We got the quarterback out of Miami. He's a senior. He is 6'2", 223 pounds, big boy. Late first round is going to be my draft grade, and I'm going to be honest here. I'm going to go late first into early second. I can't for sure give him a definitive first round grade. And here's my thing too. Let me just say the way that I grade it. Quarterbacks for me are the hardest positions to grade. And that's because just the speed of the game can completely change for these guys in a flash of a second. And you've seen it, right? You've seen guys that were world beaters in college. Josh Rosen, for example, right? Just like a kid that just was just destroying in college and then goes to the NFL and you're like, where'd he go? Right? So like the quarterback position, and the most quarterbacks get taken too, because it's like if you get a guy in the third round, in the fifth round, the sixth round, you get a guy like Russell Wilson, all of a sudden it can change your franchise. A Dak Prescott in the fourth round can change your franchise around. A Jalen Hurts in the third round can change your franchise around. So it's like, this is a guy that's Cam Ward's going to go most likely number one or number two in the quarterbacks. But for me, it's between him and Shedeur. But for me, this quarterback class is not anywhere near the top. You know what I mean? When I do my top 50 rankings, I can tell you right now, I don't think these guys are going to break top 20. That's kind of where I have them right now. But again, I got a lot of work to do. Heisman Watch player. Here's my scouting profile on him. Ward has the ability to make a play out of nothing. He does have a couple areas to improve on, and that's his decision-making ability with throws. And many times he should have just taken the check down instead of forced the pass. The other area is when pressure is in his face. It's interesting to me that the top two quarterbacks in this class both struggle against the blitz with Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. With that being said, Ward does have an incredibly high ceiling, and that's why he's going to get drafted potentially as the first quarterback in this class. His pro day and combine are going to be key for him to continue to rise up those draft boards, but overall, great passer in general, excels at intermediate and deep passes, and if he goes to an NFL team with a true wide receiver number one, it'll make for a lot of fun Sundays to come. But if he has to go to a team where he doesn't have a true number one, I'm really interested to see kind of how he plays in that system. If you're a team that's picking in the top 5 this year, right? And if you're a team that's picking in the top 5 this year that really needs a quarterback, right? This could be a year where I see the number one overall pick not taking a quarterback. That's kind of what I'm thinking. And quarterbacks in the draft, if you're not familiar with it, get valued so much higher than every other position. Get valued so much higher. And then I would argue a position that gets valued even like right underneath the quarterback is a left tackle, because most likely that's the guy that's going to be protecting the quarterback of your franchise blindside, right? So we're going to get into these quarterbacks a whole lot more. We're going to rank them and everything, and Tanner's going to ask me a ton of questions about these guys. But that's kind of the scouting profile we got for you. And Cam Ward, he's a gamer, right? He's an absolute gamer. Heisman watch. You can't not be a gamer if you're on the Heisman, right? So for me, I do think he's going to have success in the NFL, but I think that this class specifically is a class that could benefit tremendously from sitting for at least a year. I don't think that any quarterback should come in and start this next season, in my opinion. I think that they would benefit greatly from that coaching and sitting for a year. What do you got, Tanner?
I think I want to say too that, you kind of watch Cam Ward this year and kind of how that season ended, and it leaves a bad taste in your mouth, especially that loss at the end of the year that kind of kicks them out of the college football playoffs. And it's like, who's that on? You know what I mean? Is that on Cam Ward? Is that on the defense? Is that on the coaching staff? I think it's on a lot of them, if not all of them. You know what I mean? The whole narrative going around during that college football landscape was that Cam Ward is this no-nonsense kind of guy. He's not going to feel the bright lights. You know what I mean? He's cool, calm, and collected in the pocket. He's going to make the big throws, and he's not going to scoff whenever they present the opportunity. So I think you kind of saw his little bit of a human side towards the end of that college football season. Now, I will say he still played like decently well in those games too, but it just came down to kind of those end-game situations, stressful situations that you kind of saw him fail at a little bit. And that's kind of where it was like, okay, this whole narrative just got like flipped on its head. Like that wasn't supposed to happen, So I think that's kind of for a lot of people who are like, what are you talking about? It's like, there were negative plays, and you go back and you look at them. That's why, because this is not Joe Burrow. This is not Trevor Lawrence. This is not these guys that are clear cut number one picks every single year that they come out. He has a lot of stuff he's got to work out. And I completely agree with your assessment of him. I don't think he's going to be taken that low, kind of like you were saying, just because there are quarterback needy teams and they do kind of get like that 15, 20 pick range of just kind of like variance and where they're going to be picked. So I like Cam Ward though. I think he's raw. He's got a lot of raw talent, and I think he's out of the raw talent between like him and Shedeur. I think he's a little bit more polished when you kind of compare the two. So I like him. I think he's got a massive arm, but I'd love to see it tamed. You look at like Jordan Love when he came into the NFL, and it's like, all right, this kid, he's got a cannon. All right, but we got to settle it down a little bit, and he's still, doing the exact same thing out there. So a lot of it, I think, comes down to that decision making, and a lot of it comes down to, how to use that raw ability. So I like him. If I were to pick a quarterback in this draft, I think I would go and pick Cam Ward. If you had to pick one, I think Cam Ward would be my number one guy. But I don't know, man. He's out of all the quarterbacks that could like make it, I think he's kind of has like the best chance of continuously being in that starting position, and hopefully in years to come.
And to hit on a couple points you said there too, it's like, for example, there's so many quarterbacks that came into the year that you were like, that's a slam dunk.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's an absolute slam dunk. And a couple of years ago, the big one was Quinn Ewers.
Yeah.
Right. Like that was the one where it was like, he's going number one. It's not even close. And now it's like maybe third, right? Like maybe third round. And it's like, maybe he's coming back again somehow, even though he's a senior. So I guess he would do like a graduate semester. I don't know. Not at Texas, but somewhere else. I've been reading a lot of rumors there. And then he declares for the draft, and it's like, okay, thank you. So he's going to the draft. Quinn Ewers is going to the draft. But for me, Cam Ward's a guy that you kind of said, like, the reason that he's going to get drafted, and the reason that, Josh Allen, Jordan Love, like, big arm, very high ceiling, floor, no clue, right? Like that's them in a nutshell in terms of getting drafted. All right around the same spot, too, with Josh Allen and Jordan Love getting picked. But Cam Ward, I think, goes up a little bit there, too, because of the needy teams, like you said. And not to mention, Josh Allen in that class wasn't the first quarterback to be taken.
Question. Do you think he is within the top 10? Like, do you think he gets drafted in the top 10?
100%. I would be absolutely shocked if Cam Ward didn't get drafted in the top 10 or top 5.
Mm-hmm.
I would not be shocked if Shedeur didn't get drafted in the top 10. Because for me, there's a step in terms of different prospects there. Like in terms of ranking, for me, I have Cam Ward above Shedeur. But again, this is a class where, hey, yes, Cam Ward, if you like a quarterback and you're an NFL GM, you'll take him, and you could trade house to get him. The Washington, when they weren't the Commanders, did it with RG3, and it set him back for a long time. Right, to go up and get RG3 when it didn't work out after that rookie year. So I'm not saying that you need to go trade house to get Cam Ward, but that deep ball could develop into something very, very special in a couple of years if he goes to the right system, and depending upon how the game changes for him when he goes from the NFL or the NCAA to the NFL. But what's also interesting about these guys, and is kind of telling about the quarterback class, in my opinion, you don't necessarily have a ton of juniors. It's all seniors. So it's like these guys didn't come out last year when they could have come out to the draft. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the way that I look at it with these quarterbacks. And when you said earlier to so we don't get destroyed, when Tanner's talking, we're talking about prospects coming out of college, right? Like we're talking about how good Trevor Lawrence was coming out of college. He was insane. The guy behind you on the wall, Caleb Williams.
Yeah, insane. Like
insane.
Clear
coming out of college. There's a different tier of that prospect.
Joe Burrow.
Baker Mayfield had a great college, but when he went number one, a lot of people were shocked.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
I was.
Cam Ward.
I was
to me
shocked.
If he goes number one, I would be pretty shocked. Right? I would be pretty shocked. But
those guys, like
we're going to hit a ton more of these prospects in the offseason, and we're going to have.
I'm just saying, you look at a lot of those number one picks, and it's like, yeah, I get it. Like Kyler Murray, Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, Caleb Williams, like these guys. It's just like, yeah, It's because they possess a unique set of a unique skill set that no one else is doing in the college landscape. Now, how it translates is obviously the question. So,
Bunch of couch warriors over here. All right. Well, that was a good sports portion of the podcast. If you're still with us, you are probably here for the gaming segment. And I have not let anybody know what game we're going to be talking about yet. But we're talking about Assassin's Creed. Okay, we're talking about the Assassin's Creed franchise. I'm sitting up for this, right? It's a gaming segment, so you have to sit up because for those gamers that know, when you get serious, you sit up, right? You lean forward with the controller, right? Tanner is mouse and key guy. I'm a controller guy. Okay, talk about Assassin's Creed here. So I'm a big history guy, right? I'm the guy that goes on a trip, like a trip. Not even joking. And I want to go to like a history museum. I want to go see like some historic sites. You know what I mean? That's me. And Assassin's Creed is one of the only actually, let me rephrase that. Assassin's Creed is the only game that I've ever walked into a university. The one on my head, Texas A&M University. And one of my professors was playing Assassin's Creed in the classroom and then proceeded to teach us off the Assassin's Creed video games at points. And it was historically accurate. And he showed us with the textbook as well. Now, I aced that class because I'd already played the Assassin's Creed game. Never thought that Assassin's Creed game would literally get me an A in a class, but it did. First Assassin's Creed game you played. What was the one that was the one that you got me into with George Washington and all those guys? What's the title of that Assassin's Creed?
So that was the third one. It's not the third one in terms of like the overall like amount of games, but it's AC3. Assassin's Creed 3 is like the American Revolution one.
That's it. That's the game that got me absolutely hooked on this shit.
I will be right back. I will. I have something I want to show.
Tanner's going to do a little show and tell, and I will continue to keep it going while he's gone. But here's the thing, right, with Assassin's Creed games, folks. I'm a video game nerd if you don't know. And for a lot of you folks that are listening that know me, you know that big time. And Tanner is now back with whatever he has for show and tell.
Well, for show and tell, I mean, you mentioned that you kind of led with it. I was going to bring it up at some point, but there's a very iconic weapon in that game, and I don't know if we're gonna get like striked or anything like this on YouTube, but it is the tomahawk from that game. I do own a replica version of it. As you can see, it's shiny. It's very
sick.
It's pretty dope, right?
Yeah, it's pretty dope.
Yeah. So
if you played Assassin's Creed, you know that tomahawk.
Yeah, this is the one Connor uses in the game. So. Very, very cool. Obviously a massive fan of the series. I've played most of them, if not... I'm on my way to playing all of them. I've played all the old titles multiple times through. The only ones I haven't played is... I haven't finished Odyssey and on, but those games are... That's a whole different conversation.
Well, it's interesting because we had a conversation about this game before, and I wanted to bring it up. That's the reason I brought this game up on the podcast, is because this game has almost changed completely. Mm-hmm. In terms of play style when it started. When it first started, it was almost like a snake game. You know what I mean? Like when you're walking around and you're only sneaking, and it's if you don't sneak and you get caught, you're in trouble and you literally just like die immediately in that game, right? Then they changed it completely to more like a first person game. You know what I mean? And then it's like that combat with it is insane, and like the parry ability and everything in Assassin's Creed is good, but my thing is I love the fact that they always go back to just historical. Like you're going to go back and you're going to go, with Spartans, right? You're going to go back and you're going to go play Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and if you like the show Vikings, they're going to talk about Ragnar and Bjorn Ironside, right? And all those guys in there too. So if you're a history buff and you've never checked them out, you need to go ahead and check out the Assassin's Creed games. But the last thing I'll say about it is I'm going to put you on the spot. I know you don't want to be on the spot, but you're going to be on the spot.
It's okay. I'm probably pretty good on the spot with this franchise.
That's true. What is your favorite Assassin's Creed game? And what is your least favorite Assassin's Creed game?
Well, you already know my least favorite because I told it to you yesterday.
That's true.
I will give you a top 3. I won't give you a bottom 3 because I unfortunately I haven't finished all of them, and I have a feeling some of them are going to be in there. But I'll say that my top 3 is my I'll go from 3 to 1. And this is kind of controversial. And a lot of things can change, but it's tough because I want to put Assassin's Creed 3 in there. That's the one, the Tomahawk comes from, because it is a really, really fun game. And it kind of revolutionized the series, no pun intended. But
Nice.
in the way that it kind of changed its whole combat system, in the way that its parkour system works. Because obviously, when you have a game that's based around climbing around buildings, sneaking around, you have to be, the core game mechanics of climbing around buildings and sneaking around have to be good. So I'll say that my third favorite is we'll put it as 3. I think individually it's 3. But I think a close one could have been Black Flag, which is the 4th one, which is the pirate one, which a lot of people like. And the only reason that's not in my top 3 is because it is a kind of a different type of game. It's not. It is an Assassin's Creed game, but it's not centered around being an assassin. You're centered around being a pirate, and that's the main point of the game. I'm not saying it's a bad game. I really, really liked it, and it's pretty high up on my overall games, kind of tier list if we were making one of those. And I have played it through multiple times, and I have upgraded the Jackdaw pretty much every single time to the max, and I fought the 4 corners pretty much every single time I played it. And it's awesome, and I like 100%ed that game because it's awesome. But it's it's not. If you were to compare that and Assassin's Creed 3 it's much closer to the original kind of style of the franchise, which you can kind of see where I'm going with this. I'll say my number 2 is, and this might be an unpopular opinion, a lot of people would say Assassin's Creed Brotherhood here or Assassin's Creed 2, but I'm going to put Assassin's Creed Unity, which is, I don't want to do the math. It's the first game that was released on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, that kind of generation of console. And the reason I really like this game is because it looks beautiful. It's the one that takes place during the French Revolution. And I don't know, maybe I just like revolutions. But I think it looks beautiful. It really, whenever it came out, it was pushing, the limits of what the PlayStation 4 could do. With the amount of NPCs that you could possibly put on a screen. Like when you play that game, you have to have like a decently high-end PC or play it on a PS5 in order for it to run at like max settings, because it's such a graphically intense game that it's just hard to play because it looks beautiful. I think it stands up to games today, and you look at it and it's very, very atmospheric. The motions, everything is super duper smooth. The parkour at times can be clunky, which is why it's not number 1. Actually, that's not the reason why it's not number 1, because number 1's a lot clunkier. But it's just so atmospheric. The story's really, really good. The online is still pretty dang decent if you can get other people to play with. The system and the way that they level your character, I think, is really cool. I'm a big fan of RPGs, and just being able to customize your character in pretty much any way that you want. And that game does a really good job of it. You can be any color that you want. It's not like dedicated armor things that you put on a stand and you put it on your player. No, you can make whatever armor set you really want in that game. And then the sneaking and the stealth feels so good. I think it's the best stealth Assassin's Creed has ever had in Assassin's Creed Unity. That's kind of a bold claim, but when you look at the game and look at the things that you can do in the game with the smoke bombs, the trajectory, just the way that you can utilize your gadgets and things like that, I think most people would agree with me in saying that it's very, very, you can calculate every single move you make inside of like a mansion, inside of a heist, because the guards and things like that, they're smart. They're not that smart, but you have to really think about it. Use your smoke bombs in the right place. Use your other gadgets in the right place too. So I really like the parkour system. I like that it's on. I want to one of the newer engines, and it looks pretty beautiful. For number 1, and this is a little bit of a rant. Obviously, it's my favorite game series, so I'm gonna go on a rant. Is Assassin's Creed 2, and a lot of people are gonna flame me, because Brotherhood is not on this list. Well, it is. It's like 4 or 5. I'll give it to you, but The reason Brotherhood is not anywhere close to 2 is because Brotherhood is just Assassin's Creed 2 Part 2. It's the same game, just extended. And you would say to me, Tanner, why would it not be your second favorite game if your favorite game is just the Part 2 of that game? Well, I say because they added a crossbow, and I think it's stupid. Crossbow's cool, man. It's cool. It gives you range. But, like, I don't know. It's cool. The story's okay. I don't really like the villains that much. It was cool. It's fun, but the overall story and the overall kind of atmosphere that Assassin's Creed 2 creates is just, I think, unbelievable. I've gone through and I've played it multiple times. I'll just go back and play it, be like, all right, cool. I'm gonna go, do the lineage, do whatever, and that's the Assassin's Creed game, Assassin's Creed 2, that made Assassin's Creed big. I think a lot of people would either pick 2 or Brotherhood as their favorite, and I just look at it and you see kind of the improvements that it made from 1, and absolute strides had, like, you look at 1 and you look at 2 and they're completely different games. So I just have a soft spot in my heart for it. It's the first one that I really, really enjoyed. It's the one that got me into the series, and I just think it has the best story. It's got the best characters. It's got the best just overall gameplay. Maybe not gameplay, but because I'd say the gameplay technically is more like, it feels better in Unity, which is why Unity is 2. But no, AC2 is my favorite, just based on nostalgia, I would say. But I love Ezio. He's my boy, and his origin story is in that game. You know what I mean? So that's kind of where I lean to it, and just the emotional highs and lows that you get in that game are just awesome. The fact that you can't, like, whatever it's called, like the long jump or whatever, you can't do that until like halfway through the game is kind of stupid. But I think until you just like have it, and every other game past that you just have it. But no, they decided you should unlock it. And if you go back and play it today, it doesn't hold up as well as like Unity or like 3 or 4, but at the time it was amazing. Like it changed the gaming landscape for so many like generations to come. So that's why it's number 1 for me, just based off nostalgia. But if Unity, I will go back and play Unity. I have 100% of that game. I have 100% of 2, and that's like only that, and I think like 4 are the only ones that I've 100%ed. So that shows you where my allegiances kind of lie on that whole thing. But yeah, that was a big rant.
There we go. That's why we added this gaming segment at the end of the podcast for those gamers out there. If I'm gonna go top 3 of Assassin's Creed, I can't put Assassin's Creed 3 at number 1 as much as I want to. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put Assassin's Creed. I think it's Odyssey, right? Isn't that the one with the... Yes, Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I'm gonna go number 3, and then Assassin's Creed 3. I'm gonna go number 2, and then Valhalla. I have to go number 1 because I am a big, like, I literally took my favorite class in college that I studied was Ancient Civilizations to 1773. Like, and all I did was just study ancient civilizations up until 1773. So, like, yeah, Valhalla, all that. I mean, I got a dog named Odin. Dog before that was Zeus.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think it's pretty obvious, right? Like, I think it's pretty obvious where my allegiance stands in terms of Assassin's Creed. But this was a fun episode. This was a good episode, and let's have more sports talk next week. And folks, next week is going to be our Super Bowl preview show. Tanner and I are going to have some fun on that show because we're going to talk about some, maybe not necessarily some bets, but we're going to talk about what we think is going to happen, and also we're going to hold a record on who gets more this week. And I think there's going to be some stuff that we can. I think it'll be fun. I think I'm going to throw in some mix, like, does Mahomes gets 250 passing yards? You know what I mean? Yes or no? Like, I think we're going to do some stuff like that for those bettors out there because we've been getting hit up about the bet segment a little bit. And then after that, we are having our first mock draft. That's right. 2 weeks, we got our first mock draft. And as you know, if you've seen our mock drafts in the past, Tanner goes all out. We got the players on the screen and all that stuff. So it's going to be fun. Tanner, let's do it again next week.
I'm just saying, if we did a mock draft, Assassin's Creed characters, or Assassins, I'm taking Ezio number 1 overall. No questions about it. Don't care.
We're gonna do that.
Don't care who Oh, just like a video game mock draft. I think that would be kind of funny.
We're gonna do that.
I would probably take. I don't know who I would take second overall. I'm gonna be.
You got to take the. You got to take. Come on, think OG PS2 God of War. Come on.
I'd be sure he'd probably kick some butt. I don't really know what we're picking them for. If this is just an NFL team, I might be going.
No, we're just ranking video game guys.
Oh, just in general.
Thanos isn't gonna go back there and just sling the rock every time. You know what I
Dude,
mean?
I don't know, man. I don't know. He's got those knives or whatever they are, those daggers. Those things. He slings those things around. He's got a couple weapons that he's pretty good at using. He's got some
Like
black magic, some hell magic. Pretty cool. You can't forget
Like we're
about
watching The Longest Yard.
yeah. What about like Sonic? You know what I mean? Like literally Sonic. You could just give him the ball and he just scored a touchdown every time.
That's fair. Yeah, you never be able to catch him. We could go on for 7 days. All right, let's see you folks next week.
Bye everyone. Go watch the NBA. Go watch the
There it
NBA.
is.
It's pretty
There it
hype.
is.
Rockets are
There it
good.
is.
Spurs still suck. The Celtics kind of suck now. Sorry. Bye y'all.
Good way to end it.